A very warm welcome to OmniFocus Workflows with Reverend Michael L. Wilson, and really grateful to Michael for being here today. I know he has a real depth of wisdom to share through his careers that he's had to date, and really look forward to getting a taste of that today. For those of you who are new to Learn OmniFocus, thanks very much for joining, and thanks very much for being a part of the community. This is something that I founded back in June of 2014 as a bit of an experiment, and it's really grown over the years. Had people join from I think it's 77 countries the last time I counted. So one of the things I really love about it is the international community that's formed around OmniFocus. And even though OmniFocus is the focal point for this website, for this community, it really is about much more than OmniFocus. It's about applying and learning productivity practice. It's about using other apps and services alongside of OmniFocus. And the reason that I centered it around OmniFocus is I thought it'd be very helpful if we all had something in common in that we're all using OmniFocus, but it goes far beyond that. And one of the things I really like to do is share the wealth. And I appreciate everyone who, especially who joined last month and contributed to the Red Cross through that. And I was able to give a check for $1,500 to the Red Cross, make a donation to them yesterday. So really happy to be offering that support on behalf of the Learn OmniFocus community. I think there are some other companies who are matching these donations as well. So that could grow to 3 or 4 times the contribution that I made yesterday on behalf of our community. So thanks very much for making that possible, and had a very warm thank you from the Red Cross as well. So I want to give you a taste of what's coming soon to Learn OmniFocus Live, which is one of the sessions that we're on at the moment. And if you're new to Learn OmniFocus Live, there's currently 4 components to it. One is sessions where I cover certain productivity themes, like how to work with someday maybe less, and mastering your review, looking at the big picture. And I've got more of these that are coming down the pike. So these get more into the core productivity skills and how you can apply them with OmniFocus and other apps. And then something I've been doing a lot of recently is featuring specific apps that are natural complements to OmniFocus. And I've got more of those featured apps coming, including one for next month that I'll mention in a moment. And I really want to present how OmniFocus can be used in many different scenarios and the many different ways of using OmniFocus. And that was one of the motivations behind inviting workflow guests on to Learn OmniFocus. So we'll hear what Michael has to say today, and he's definitely got a lot of great and innovative ways to use OmniFocus and other apps. And also recommend going and checking out the catalog of other guests who have been on, and these are all provided free of charge. So even if you're not a Learn OmniFocus member currently, you'll have access to all of those recordings. There's also the small group office hours. This is one of my favorite parts of Learn OmniFocus. It's when we get to connect face-to-face in a small group, and these are limited to 10 people. And you can bring any OmniFocus related topics to these sessions. Sometimes people will join them too, just to get a kind of a feeling of camaraderie, a sense of community that we get when we're working face-to-face and interacting face-to-face. So I encourage you to come and check out one of these if you haven't already. There's a good chance you'll meet Michael at one of these sessions. He's definitely a regular at Learn OmniFocus Office Hours. So as I mentioned, I'm talking a lot about using OmniFocus with other apps. That's been a theme over the years, but it's an especially strong theme now. And it addresses what I've noticed, that sometimes people try to use OmniFocus for too many things. They really overload OmniFocus. They maybe use it for things that it wasn't really designed for. So this series is really all about what is OmniFocus good at, and what are some complementary apps that are going to enhance the overall productivity system. So the ones I've covered so far is the Asana project management system, the collaborative project management system. Karash Dini, who's an expert on both OmniFocus and DevonThink, has a great session that delves into DevonThink. And I recently covered MindNote as well, which is a beautiful complement for both designing your productivity system and thinking through the projects, especially the larger ones. And I know Michael's a big fan of MindNote as well, and he's going to be presenting some really interesting use cases today. So I'm working on some other apps to cover, including Drafts, Evernote, Notion, OmniPlan, and Trello. And the next one that's coming, I'll mention in a moment. I'm also going to be covering Hook in more detail. I did a little intro to that as part of the MindNote session. And if you're not familiar with Hook, it's a Mac app that allows you to link together apps and websites and documents and folders and OmniFocus projects and tasks and so forth. So it's a very nice way to work among multiple apps and still have it very convenient to get to the information you need. So I look forward to covering that one in more depth as well. And as I mentioned, the next one I'll be covering is the Drafts app, which is one I've been using pretty much since the beginning. It's really a stellar app that continues to improve. So we're going to be looking at that app, putting that app under the spotlight on January 20th. That'll be from 10 to 11 Pacific time, talking about how it can be used as a capture point into OmniFocus and other apps, how you could use it to keep track of some project support material, how you can use it for templates. It understands the task paper format, so now it can be a really nice way to keep project templates and so forth. So we'll take a really deep dive into that. And there's currently 5 office hour sessions open for registration, and I try to vary the times of these, so hopefully you can find at least one or so a month that you can attend. And again, I encourage you to come check these out. These are not recorded, unlike the other sessions. They're really about the engagement that takes place during the session itself. Working with my wonderful web developer, Alex, we've recently added an enhancement to the site. So as you register for things in the future, you'll see there's a register button down at the bottom of the event, and you can also view it in your time zone. And you can do this all right within Learn OmniFocus now, so you don't have to go off to Eventbrite. It's all right within the system itself. And I know sometimes people register in things and forget they've registered, or they're not quite sure if they've registered. So for future events, you'll be able to go into your My Account section. And then down at the bottom, you'll see a section that says My Event Registrations, and you can see everything that you've registered in. So you can keep track of it that way as well. So I hope you enjoy that, and it makes things more convenient. All right, well, it's time to introduce our guest of honor for today, Reverend Michael L. Wilson. And he's joining us from California, specifically from San Lorenzo. And I was actually in California last year. I went down to San Jose for the Zoomtopia conference. And we had our first ever, and I hope to do many more of these in the future, in-person gatherings. And have very warm memories of being at that event. And that's where I got to meet Michael and some other wonderful people in person as well. So hope to have the chance to meet you in person. In the meantime, we've got our office hours so we can connect face to face. And a few things about Michael. So he's got a very interesting history. He's a former computer programmer, and he's currently a pastor in San Lorenzo. And I'll leave it to him to tell a bit more about his story. But he brings a very rich experience, both in productivity and technology, and just the kind of working with the technology and what can be a very changeable, very demanding field, and being able to plan to some extent, but having to get very good at adjusting to whatever's happening in the moment. So really look forward to diving into his system. If you do want to keep in touch with Michael and follow the work that he's doing, you can find him on Facebook, Pastor M. Wilson, on Twitter at Pastor Michael, and on YouTube, he's got a channel on there under Pastor Michael. So I encourage you to check those out. And he's the pastor specifically of the Cornerstone Fellowship Church, and their website is livingfreetoday.org. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Michael.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I started my technology career back in the early 80s in the Air Force. The Air Force was just beginning to computerize, and so I built computers, fixed computers, learned BASIC and other things. And then after the Air Force, I got a job at Seagate Technology and then Western Digital writing test software and software to manipulate hard drives. And then from that, I learned you've got to keep lists of things you're going to do, especially if you're writing software. You got to know what the software is supposed to do. You got to know the requirements of the software, and you got to know who told you to do it. And from that, I learned that the Franklin Day Planner by Hiram Smith, out of this book, was very valuable. And so I used that for over a decade. I became a pastor in 2005. The iPhone came out in 2007. I started getting into Macs and iPhones around 2010, 2011. And that's when I was introduced to OmniFocus. And I've used things and I've used other things, but I always come back to OmniFocus because of the granularity, because of what you can see with it, and I'll show you some of that. There are 3 books that I use to speak to my task management. This is the first one. This one focuses on having values dictate what tasks you do. And his philosophy is if you are doing tasks that are in line with your values, you will always be at peace. The second book is Essentialism, and that keeps stray things from coming into OmniFocus. I have a specific work to do, and that is what OmniFocus is for. And the third is Margin. Trying to squeeze tasks in, a 5-minute task into a 4-minute slot doesn't always work, because especially with technology, you can't always get what you're doing in the right spot. And so these 3 books don't tell me what to do with the tasks that are on the list. They're a gatekeeper to show me what tasks are allowed on my list and what's allowed in OmniFocus. And if I know beforehand what is allowed in OmniFocus, then OmniFocus becomes a trusted system where I know what's in there is real. I know what's in there is something I gotta do. I use these apps. OmniFocus, MindNote, Do Drafts, Day One Pastor, Everything Fantastical, every day in my working and my productivity. All of them relate to OmniFocus. And I use on the iOS devices something called Launch Center Pro, because I can launch shortcuts directly into OmniFocus without going into OmniFocus and trying to find things. Because of the way that I work and I've got to be mobile, every app that I use for productivity has to be on Mac and iOS and has to be able to sync its data everywhere so that I can get to it. I'm going to be showing you MindNote, Do, and DevonThink in a little bit. If you have any questions on any of these, of course, I'll cover that near the end. So MindNote is a mind mapping piece of software, and it is where I dump everything that I'm working on. This one is called Interfaces because it's every person, place, or thing that I come across. So I have people in my family, I have my technology, I have my health management, I have church management, I have doing the dishes, I have everything that I do on this. And then every 3rd Wednesday, I actually go through and I look at it line by line and I say, is this still accurate? Is this still active? And do I need to do anything concerning this? So this will feed tasks into OmniFocus, and I use this kind of as a something to remind me, something to make me think in a certain direction. And so this is the big one that has everything in it. Area of focus is a little smaller. This is things that I'm actually working on and doing right now. And so Learning OmniFocus Presenting is on this one because I'm doing this right now. And this was telling me that I needed to focus on that. I'm also moving up to Squim for those of you in Washington. I'm moving and I'm building a house. And so these are all the questions and these are all the things that I'm doing to move about 1,000 miles closer to Tim. That's what I'm going to be doing. And so this will continue to grow. We plan on breaking ground on December of 2023. So as I add things, this will continue to grow. And as we get to actually putting shovel to ground, this will really take off. I recently upgraded to Big Sur, and so I created a backup strategy mind node thing to kind of get me thinking about where am I backing things up to, and if the upgrade didn't go well, where could I find all the data that I was backing up? And so this is my backup philosophy. And I'm working on a new website for the church. And so these are the various things that I think about that is figuring things out, and they go here. And so in that way, anytime I'm thinking about something, but I don't know what the tasks are yet, it goes into MindNode, and MindNode allows me to expand my thinking and then from it create tasks that go into OmniFocus. So this is my OmniFocus. Start with my projects. I have a personal section. Cornerstone is the name of my church. So I have a Cornerstone section and I have a maintenance section. Most of my projects are not begin and end type projects. They are areas of responsibility. They are areas of working on things. And so I have personal development, which is reading, videos to watch that people send me. My walk is my spiritual pursuits. Routine are the things that I do regularly. Home is another subfolder that I was thinking maybe move things into there. I haven't done anything in there yet. Health and fitness is working at the gym, which is shut down during COVID. All of my tech routines, grocery shopping, and single actions. And in Cornerstone, I had prepare for OmniFocus, which was this, and all the things are done for that. So that project can go away. Anybody who's in church work, anybody who is a clergy, they repeat their life 52 times a year. We work on a 1-week repeating schedule. Your Protestants, your Catholics will have repeat on a Sunday. Your rabbis will repeat on a Saturday. Your imams will repeat on a Friday. And every group that has a weekly holy day has to repeat on that. So everything I do during the week will culminate on Sunday. And then I reset everything and I do it all again. So the routine is the same every week, but the content is different. But I'm doing the same basic things every week. And the routine setup that I have come up with has 171 tasks that I repeat every week. And they're set up some on Monday, some on Tuesday, some on Wednesday, some on Friday. And there are 55 tasks of that 171 that I have to do on Sunday. So my whole OmniFocus is built on a weekly repeating schedule. There are also annual schedules and special schedules for church workers. We are right in the middle of the Advent and Christmas season, so those are active. The rest are on hold until we get to Easter. Our two big holy days are Christmas and Easter, and so we work around those things. I will also do funerals and weddings as required. Not many weddings during COVID. We have had a few funerals, sadly, but we're available for that. And what I do with DevonThink is that this tree structure is repeated in DevonThink. So I will get music that I like for a wedding, for example, and I can't put it in OmniFocus. You can't put files and things for storage in OmniFocus. So I go to the wedding folder in DevonThink and I put it there. Then I put notes in OmniFocus about things that I have over in DevonThink. You can also get URLs out of items in DevonThink and put that into OmniFocus. So I can actually click on something in OmniFocus and go right to DevonThink. And so DevonThink is my resource feeder for these tasks that come up every year. I also have something called Pastor Stuff, which is my single action list for everything that I do that is a pastor. I have a folder for church, and I have my Sunday morning tasks. I have my Tuesday work tasks. I have my Sunday prep on Friday. Sometimes we have a Sunday afternoon lunch. And I also have to submit forms to the county every year, and so that's there. I have people in my church, and when people have difficulties, for example, currently I have a 94-year-old lady who has water on her lungs and she's in and out of the hospital. I will actually create a project with her name so I can keep track of what's going on with her, and I can create tasks. I can use the OmniFocus note field to put in things like phone numbers and doctors' names until she's all better and out of the hospital. And so things like that, I feel that making a project under the person's name is the best way to keep it in front of me. I've tried doing a tag under the person's name, but that's too easy to lose. If I look at this project list and I see, Sally or Larry or whoever under people, then it's right there in my face, knowing that I got to do something with that. I got to stay in contact with them. I've got to do things to make them more comfortable as their shepherd. I'm doing Google, trying to get my website into Google Marketing. And back in October, somebody came and said, the kitchen's flooded in our church. And in fact, it was. And so for 6 weeks, I was the building manager of trying to get plumbers in, trying to get new piping in. We're currently plastering the walls. And so as I'm not doing the work and I'm not really the project manager, but I'm the building manager. So any tasks that come to me of hiring a plumber or hiring a plaster person or things like that would go under here. I'm currently all done. They're currently finishing up the work. Working with insurance would go here, and all that I have to do. Then you have church maintenance. That's just things that we do. I don't work a lot from the project view. This is just a way of showing me areas I want to see what tech things I have to do, or health and fitness. I can click on that. Most of the things that I do are in tags. I am a tag junkie. meaning if you show me a tag system, I'll try it and see what it does. And I'm not the best at deleting old tag systems that don't work out. The tags that you have to have, that I have to have my system work, is I have to either put the home tag or the church tag or the anywhere tag for my perspectives to work. And I'll show that in a second. As I said, I've tried to put people's names as tags, but that seemed like too much work. Normally in my setup, I would have this window. I would have 4 tabs. I would have forecast, today, C-Stone, which is short for cornerstone, and home. And I open my day with the today tag. The today tag is everything that the today perspective is everything that I can do today. Most things, in fact, everything today is deferred. There are no due dates today, so that if I get called away, these things will continue into tomorrow. This is what my today perspective looks like. I am getting available things that aren't project or group, and it is anything that is due soon. My due soon is 24 hours. You can choose what your due soon is. Back in settings, mine is 24 hours. If it's flagged, if it has a deferred date, and my today tag is current. I got that from Kurosh Dini. He had good reasons for why you use current, and I like them. Then I sort them by flagged. So if you look at this, my flagged are at the top. These are things that I've actually got to do because the garbage gets taken out tomorrow. So I got to take out the trash tonight. But I don't set them as due. I just set them as flagged. So they're kind of in my face. I put everything in my OmniFocus, including my Bible reading, my history reading, my prayer, my visitation, my financial, everything that I want to do today is in the today perspective, including everything from the cornerstone and everything from the home. So this is the catch-all of everything that is going to be happening today. I start my day by looking at this because it really gives me a sense of where I'm going. I can see from here if I have to leave the church, if I have to visit somebody, things like this. This gives me a overall quick view of my day. And then, of course, I have my tags over here on the right, so I can say, well, this is the prayer I want to do. This is the reading I want to do. These are things that are considered, which are optional. If there are no dishes to do, I don't have to do them. This is just another way of looking at your perspective. My church perspective, I will go over to home. My home perspective is everything that I can only do at home. My difference between church and home is physical location. We do not have a cuckoo clock at church, but we have one at home, and I have to wind it. So I can only do that at home. I can only check our robot vacuum at home. I can only take out home trash at home. So this is limited by location. If I go over to today, prayers, for example, I can pray anywhere. And so this has no location. This actually has the anywhere location because I can do that anywhere. On Sunday morning, I use a sequential project. And as I get in the morning, for the idea of margin, for example, church starts at 10:45. I get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I start turning on the technology. We wirelessly broadcast to 3 TVs in the sanctuary. And I give myself basically 2.5 hours for everything to break. It's rare, but sometimes it does. If I were to roll in right at 10 and try to do everything in 15 minutes, it would be insane. So that is the idea of the margin of time. I'm very conscious of the margin of time. I try to give myself enough time to do what has to be done. And so after I pray for my preaching, then all the building things come up. And I'm only seeing these few things on my phone or my iPad. Then I set up the computer that's going to broadcast. Then I set up the computer that's going to record my sermon. And this keeps things going in a linear flow, that if I just had one long list of 55 things on Sunday morning, I would be tempted to bounce around or do them in whatever order seemed fun. This kind of forces me to do it in an order and make sure that the previous thing is working before the next thing happens. And so if you look at the project for Sunday morning, I got to change that to remainder or available all. So this is how I have it set up. I have it set up by heading, and then everything is under it. And I go through this sequentially every Sunday morning, and I only get little pieces because it is a sequential project. My basic workflow is to come in every morning and look at today and what's available today, look at the various tags, and then later in the day I move to home because I'm going to be heading home. People have said that clergy work is a lot of routine with interspersed crises, and that is why OmniFocus saves me, is that I can have a list. I can say, okay, I've got that, do that, do that, do that, do that. Then the phone rings and one of my people's gotten in a car accident. One of my people's been rushed to the hospital. One of my people's just sad and wants to talk about COVID. You name it, they'll call me. Homeless people will pound on the door. I'll get urgent emails of things I have to do. And those things will interrupt. And when that interruption is done, and that interruption can take 5 minutes, that interruption can take 2-3 hours if I have to go to the hospital. And when I come back, I know exactly where I've left off. I know exactly that this is what's left. I don't have to keep it in my head. I don't have to remember what I'm doing. And OmniFocus gives me the flexibility to make a perspective to display my lists any way I want. These are the 4 main perspectives, but I got like 20 of them. I don't use the forecast calendar much, but it is good to go here and just scroll and say, so what's going to hit me around Christmas? Oh, I'm clearing my schedule. And then in the future, I've got all those things.
Just wanted to chime in with one question, Michael. Great question from Antonio. He says, I don't quite get why, if you spend more time using tags and projects, you miss people's names if they're tags, but not if they're projects. So if you could, I know you mentioned earlier how you've kind of played with both approaches. So I think he's asking really what makes it more convenient or makes more sense.
Yeah, so I've tried with tags. Projects. I don't live a lot on this screen. And so if I have somebody's name on this screen and it has to pop up, I would have to make a perspective looking for that name. I would have to make a perspective looking for that tag. While if it's in a project, I do have a perspective that shows me everything in the people project. And as people go in and out of that project, I don't have to change my perspective, is kind of how I've learned to do it. It is personal preference. I know people who live their life in tags. Everything has a tag and they love it that way. I don't. So
I think one consideration as well, to speak to what you were saying earlier, where you might get that phone call or somebody knocking on the door or something out of the blue. And I imagine at that point, you don't want to be thinking about, do I need to create a new tag or something like that? Do you want to have a place to put that so you can get it on the list or deal with it right away? Or is that
right.
kind of part of the incentive to?
Right. And it's very easy to add things to the people project. I just have to add a task, and boom, it's in my people perspective. And I don't have to add anything, I guess is the way to look at it. My iPad mini is my weapon of choice. I carry it around the church. It has network tools and other things, and I can very easily move between the perspectives on my iPad mini. I have a perspective for prayer, for all my spiritual pursuits, for errands. I don't have anything I have to leave the church to do today. You also have projects and tags. People have said, well, why don't you do it on the phone? Yeah, I do it on the phone. I got OmniFocus everywhere. I got OmniFocus on my watch. But you can do slide over and split screen on the iPad. So even on the iPad mini, I can have OmniFocus and email open at the same time. I can have OmniFocus and even MindNode open at the same time and slide over email. So I have more opportunity to see more apps and more information on an iPad mini than I can on my phone.
Question about your experience with DevonThink on iOS and iPadOS. Is that something you use, first of all, on those devices, and do you hit any kind of roadblocks? Because I know there are some limitations when it comes to using it on these devices.
Right. So I will say no limitations. Everything seems to be able to download, and the way DevonThink works is you have a local copy of your database on every device. So even if I'm somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, I can still get to forms and data that I need on my iPad mini. Everything that I use in productivity that is on my Mac has to work on my iPad mini or I won't use it. People have said Roam is fantastic. Roam is fantastic, but I can't get it mobile. And so I use it very limitedly. I use DevonThink because it's always local.
And if you do create a link to something in DevonThink on your Mac, I believe that link will still work on your iPhone and iPad as well.
That is correct. If I take a link from DevonThink and put it into OmniFocus, for example, OmniFocus will think it if I add things or subtract things from the database. I just have to open it so it has a chance to sync, and there we are.
Yeah, Harold is asking, is DevonThink similar to Evernote, a repository of sorts? I'm happy to take that one, having used both. And conceptually, I'd say they're the same basic type of app. They're repositories for information, but the kind of implementation is quite different. DevonThink is almost more of a finder on steroids. It's something where you can take really any kind of information and index it and search it and so forth, and you decide where that information lives and which devices you put it on and so forth. Whereas with Evernote, you're essentially working within their system, so they provide all of the hosting and everything. It works on pretty much any device, so there's less setup involved, but you also don't have the same degree of control. It doesn't go as deep with the searching. And so some people use both. Some people will choose one or the other. And then there anything you want to add to that, Michael? And
I used to use Evernote, and when I found DevonThink, I liked the fact that it's local. There were issues when I was out in the hinterlands. Some places in Oakland that I would visit have no cellular connection. And I think they fixed a lot of that, but there was a lot of construction when I first became a pastor around in this area. And Evernote would just say, oh, can't find the servers. Well, DevonThink, I know I have them locally. So this is my DevonThink setup on the Mac. I create a folder for everything by type. Currently, as I said, the information from the Christmas season. This is my Christmas data in DevonThink. So I don't look for what readings we're going to have Sunday in OmniFocus. OmniFocus tells me to come to DevonThink, and then I find the readings here because I can work on, Christmas comes the same time every year. I can work on Christmas schedule in June if I have the time, and then it is just stored there in DevonThink and it's ready when I need it. People always want to know, are we incorporated, and what's our deed look like, and what's our constitution look like, and when did we build things? And the people are usually in the county or banks. And so all the documents that I need, I have taken all the historical documents and I have scanned them into a PDF and I put them in DevonThink. And so the incorporation filings of our church is on all of my, I can show the bank that on my phone, if they want to see it. And it's, it's from 1951, but I've taken it and I put it in a PDF and I put it in DevonThink. I was in the Air Force, so a lot of my Air Force documents are there. I get healthcare from the VA, so all my VA letters are there. Somebody sends me a document that I would like to keep for a long time. I put it in PDF format, or I scan a picture or something and I put it in DevonThink. And it's there for me. And so that's why I use it. I also have a DevonThink for my spiritual pursuits, for my tech stuff, for sermon. And then I've been going through Denny's using notes with DevonThink. And so I've created the slip box for his exercises. And all of these things are indexed. All of these things can be found in an instant on any of my devices. And so that's why I like DevonThink.
One thing to add to that as well, not to go too deep into DevonThink, but one thing that's really nice about it is if you had a bunch of files and folders in the Finder, you could literally just drop them into DevonThink and you're preserving all of that organization. And
Correct.
if for some reason you decided that you had things organized in DevonThink that you wanted to put on a file server, Dropbox or something like that, it's very easy just to drag them out of DevonThink and put them where you want. So it gives kind of that ultimate flexibility. You're not really locked into a system, which is, I think, one of the things that's really, really good about it.
Right. It really preserves the format that I put it in there. I copy a Pages document in there. I can actually double click on it in DevonThink and Pages will open and edit it and save it back to DevonThink.
And Jennifer's asking what tags you use in DevonThink. And I'd be curious if there was a relationship between your OmniFocus tags and your DevonThink tags.
There is not. DevonThink has the ability to auto tag everything you put in it. And so it will scan every document and create tags based on what it thinks is nice. And so I let it do it. I don't do a lot of tag movement between OmniFocus, the operating system, and DevonThink.
A good way to look at it is the point is not to use tags in any of these apps just for the sake of using tags. It's looking at what value that they bring. So Michael's definitely getting some definite value from using them in OmniFocus, because he can say, this is something that I need to be at the church to do or at home to do. And so it's not just using them for the sake of using them, but using them in order to generate those lists, to be able to create those perspectives and so forth that are ultimately going to make OmniFocus be a useful place to go to say, okay, what do I do next? Speaking of perspectives, Adam's asking if you could just maybe show a bit more details on your perspective settings and maybe go over that one more time.
Today looks like that. It's available. It's not a project or group. Once again, do so. You can set that in settings. Mine is set to 24 hours.
Have you experimented with that do soon setting?
I have.
Yeah.
In back when I was using things like To Do or Apago's To Do, they had like a 3-day thing, and you could set that to 3 days, but that was too far in advance. When you're using OmniFocus, you're really seeing what's in the moment. What can I do right now? And looking too far out as a default setting got too confusing. I want to be able to pick up my phone, pick up my iPad, turn on my Mac, and know what can I do right now, not what can I do Thursday. So Cornerstone has the same basic view of today, except that it is tagged with the tag church. And so all the things that have the tag church are here. I also get due soon, flagged, and defer date.
Did you purposely omit the today tag on that one?
Correct. Yes, yeah. I do. I only want to see a very small list of things that I can only do while I'm in the building.
Those would essentially only show up on the today list, assuming they don't meet any of the other criteria.
Correct.
Yep.
And then home is the same sort of idea. I do have the current tag for home because that's home's kind of a catch-all place. I have a specific job to do when I'm at the church. I just putter around and do whatever when I'm at home. Seems to be how it is. So it has the home tag, due soon, flagged, and also the current tag, and I sort by flagged. I've played around with this in the past. I find that having flagged at the top is better visually. I can work through the top, and I don't have anything on these perspectives out here. I only have the thing. I don't have defer dates. I don't have due dates. I don't have tags. I don't have duration. All the stuff you can put in your projects, in your perspectives, I do not use on these 3 perspectives. I want a clean list that only has the name of the thing.
And do you use the anywhere perspective, or the anywhere tag rather, in any of your perspectives?
The anywhere tag shows up in the today. There's no special place for it. I used to have a special place for it. But then I just let it show up in the today perspective.
So that just gives you a quick way of saying, what can I do anywhere?
Right. Because I can pray for my move to Squim when I'm standing in line at the post office. I can do that anywhere. And so the core reason why I use and like OmniFocus is that I do not have any direct supervision in my job. I'm the top guy. The buck stops with me. During COVID, I'm the only person in the building. And so creating marching orders, even though I make this list myself, I say these things are important. I say I'm going to do these things, and nobody in the church, unless I don't show up on Sunday, is going to tell me this list is wrong. Because of that, I can create my own marching orders, and I can have OmniFocus presented in such a way that I know what I have to do. I understand what I have to do. Things will repeat when they have to repeat. Things will not repeat when they don't repeat. And I can get all of those things done. OmniFocus 3 really expanded their repeat functions. I have a review tag, And I review my Mind Node every third Wednesday, I think is how it is. And you can do that in OmniFocus now. You couldn't do that with OmniFocus 1, but you can do that now. And so as OmniFocus advances, I can spread my review out over the month. I review Instapaper, my desktops of my various computers, because I'm working on things. I will throw things on the desktop, and I got to make sure that stuff doesn't build up. And so that is kind of an inbox to me. And then you have the built-in review. Yeah, I did that last week. So sorry, no review things. I spread those out. You can tell each project how often to review it. So review every 2 months, you can review it and so I spread this out, and I have things like the stuff for the county filings. I review it every year because I only have to do it every year. And my whole Sunday morning project, I'm doing that every week. If I notice something is not right, I can fix it that afternoon. So I do the Sunday morning review every 6 months. By default, I guess you get it every week or every month. I don't know. OmniFocus wants to give you a review schedule that is very tight. And I spread it out. I purposefully look at every project and I say, well, I don't need to see this, review this, except every year, every 6 months, every 8 months. Things like that.
Do you do any sort of a formal weekly review or monthly review or anything like that? Or is it more kind of granular as things show up on your review list?
So I review my inboxes. Drafts has an inbox. Email has an inbox. Devon Think has an inbox. OmniFocus has an inbox. Pretty much everything that accepts data has an inbox. And so my goal is to list those there and try to do those every Friday. I'm in the process of rebuilding my review, but these are the things I want to look at. I want to look at my inboxes. I want to look at my actions. I want to look at my projects. I want to look at my security. You can review Google security and email security and things like that. And then tech. That has a lot of cleaning things. Do I have the right things? Is it time to upgrade to the iPhone 12? You know, questions like that would come in my tech review, where I'm just looking at, do I need to advance everything? Then I got my mind nodes, and I got everything else that I look at. My goal is things that I use as data sources, I have to put my eyes on them at least once every 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then it's not necessarily too much all at once that you're having to deal with. You can spread it out that way too.
Right, and I look on my iPad or I look on my phone, it'll put a little number in the review icon on your perspectives as a little way of saying, hey, time to review things. And part of my nighttime shutdown, I'm trying to work on a procedure for shutting down at night, is to look at that number and see if it's something I have to do right then or there. The last thing is I use Do. Do is an alarm program. If you want to be alarmed and you want to look at it, OmniFocus is very weak at repeated notification. It's mostly things that if I'm too busy, I'll forget to do it. So I want my watch and my phone and my iMac and everything to make a noise and to say, hey, it's time to check your current status or to eat. I can actually get too busy, I forget to eat.
Do is really one of those apps that'll nag you until something is done.
Right. And you can set it every minute to tell you to charge your Apple Watch or do things like that.
It's almost for those things that aren't long enough to be on a calendar, but they still need to be done at a pretty specific time.
It has one job and it does it phenomenally. Calendars can drop things. OmniFocus can drop alarms. OmniFocus is great at keeping your list, but it's really bad at notifications.
Adam's asking if we can see the My Walk perspective as well.
So it's anything that's available, and it has to have the My Walk. It has to be in that folder, and then it's just a list.
I think this is a good example of a perspective that can be very useful, even though it's extremely simple. And it just reinforces how valuable it can be to have things contained within a folder or project or something like that. And then sometimes all you need to do is surface those things and say, OmniFocus, tell me what I can actually work on right now.
It's right in my face on my portable things. It's not in the sidebar on my iMac. I tend to pray while I'm walking around with my iPad mini. I also, if I get information, so somebody's in the hospital and here's the doctor's name and here's the phone number and here's their COVID policies, I can use the note thing to put those sorts of things in here and I can see them. They appear much better on the iPad than they do on the iMac. The iMac note thing is weak, but you can get a whole pane. You get 3 panes on the iPad. The right pane can be that information. So I can pray intelligently for what's going on with somebody. You know, I just keep them ungrouped. I just want a list. That's what I want to pray about. And I've also got, so I read the Puritans, I read the Bible, that's in my walk. I use a Bible app that reminds me what I need to read. Here I just have read some Bible. And then when I go to the Bible app and I read it, I come back, I check it off. Other thoughts about tasks is back when I started doing YouTube videos, I was very new at it. And so I created a whole project of 50 steps to do the YouTube video, make sure I did it right and make sure everything was done right in every single step. Now that I have 500 videos up on YouTube, I only have one little line that says create YouTube video and another one that says create podcast. So I have the muscle memory to know what that means. I do not need that project anymore. And as new things will happen. When we put in the new TV broadcast system, I created a big old project on how to set it up and how to learn it. And now it's turn on the TVs is all it says. And I know what to do. And so projects and tasks shrink as I get more muscle memory as to what I'm doing, as I know what to do. As new things will happen, I will create projects to learn them, to set them up. And then as I get to know them, those projects disappear and become a single task.
Maybe we'll take a few more questions. One is around tasks that involve other people. So if you have someone that's, helping with some aspect of the church, do you have a system in place for that outside of OmniFocus? Do you keep track of those within OmniFocus to some extent? How would that all kind of play out?
Not for my church work. When we had the plumbing problem, I had a task of call the plumber. Now I have tasks of pay the plumber. But collaborating, not really. The house that I'm building, we've hired remote builders, and they're going to use Trello. So this is our move to Squim, and that's a dream house there that I'm going to build one of those. These are the various things I got to do, and our builders have access to this board. We're sharing this board with our builder. And so they will begin putting things into here as they begin building the house. The goal is they're building the house and we're down here, that they will put questions and pictures and stuff in here, and we respond to them through this as opposed to email.
Do you have plans for what the interface will be between OmniFocus and Trello, or will those exist fairly separately?
I have not. My guess is as I get tasks, so they'll want some kind of document or something. I will put that task into OmniFocus and get them the document they need. If they need, certain money by a certain date, that will go in OmniFocus. Things that I have to do other than passively watch them build my house.
This is something I'll cover in the future, and I've touched on in the past, is you could use something like Zapier to say, if I tag this with OmniFocus, to create a task that's linked to that card in Trello. So we looked at some similar mechanisms within the Asana session, and it tends to be a common theme, regardless of which service you're using. There's a way to create that integration that ideally, the more automated it is, the more attractive it'll be to use. So.
I got till 2023 to figure out how I'm going to do it. We bought the land, we put in septic, we put in a well, we put in electricity, and we put in cable internet.
It's a good start for sure. Yeah, one was about the difference between do and reminders. I'm actually going to do some content around both of these apps, but the main distinction is that do can nag you over and over again. So with reminders, you could maybe miss a reminder, but whereas do, you could say, show this to me every minute until I mark it complete if it's something you really don't want to slip through the cracks.
Their app is built to do alarms, repeated, often, and loud. And they do it extremely well.
Ron's wondering how you use Launch Center Pro on iOS for your workflows.
So on my iPad, there you have Launch Center Pro. Launch Center Pro is action related. So I have call brother. I tap that, it's going to call my brother. I have OmniFocus actions down here. And if I tap on that, I can go to the today perspective instantly. I can go to the My Walk perspective instantly. So it's a way of opening perspectives and projects instantly and starting work without having to open the OmniFocus app and click on something and get to where I'm going. The URLs and the way you can call OmniFocus stuff out of other apps is all on the OmniFocus website. And with it, you can create a long string of exactly what I want to do. So the errands tag. This is looking at a tag. Launch Center Pro can respond to NFC tags. I am trying to find a place where I can put an NFC tag where I can tap my phone against it every morning and have it go to the today perspective. So I'm kind of working on that. Probably the last reason that I will stay with OmniFocus is the Omni automation, is that they are working on so many ways of remote controlling your app from other apps and from scripts, and nobody else is doing that.
If you want a taste of that, if you haven't already, there's a course you can watch on using Omni automation that really starts from the basics and gives you some sample automations to work with and so forth. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't already. And we'll definitely be delving more deeply into Omni automation in the future as well.
And every Sunday I preach from Omni Outliner on my iPad Pro 12.9 inch. And I use my iPad mini as a remote control for our TV presentation.
So he's curious if you're retiring up in Washington then?
I'm going to be finished with this church. I really don't know. If you look at my moving to Squim, my employment, question mark.
Okay.
I do not know what I'll be doing.
Jamie's asking, would you show what the Sunday morning action list looks like on an iPad? And is it possible with a similar linear series of checklists on Apple Watch? And I don't think that's something you could actually pull up on an Apple Watch.
You cannot do it on an Apple Watch. You can tell the Apple Watch a particular perspective, but it won't group the flagged at the top. For example, any things you put into your perspectives for sorting don't seem to appear on the watch. The watch gives you just the whole list. And so I have the today perspective on my watch, on the complications that have a number. The number are things in my today perspective. When I go down to the bottom of the watch app and tap that and turn the crown, I am offered the today perspective. And it just seems to be a raw list of things. So on the iPad, I've already done some of it, but it goes like that, and then I get more. And then I do that, and I do that, and I do that, and I do that. And I think that's it.
I know that's something Kuresh talks about a lot too, is kind of psychologically how long lists of things tend to kind of create unnecessary stress. So that's one of the beauties of the way you're dividing things up there, Michael, is to do it in sort of logical groups.
Right. I do it by areas of the church. So if I'm in the back where turning on the power and the heat and all that, the 5 tasks that are related to that are given to me. And then when I come out and I'm setting up the computers, all these setting up tasks are given to me.
Yeah, and Jamie has a great point. This is a great way to stage a house cleaning project as well. So this can be used in many different scenarios. Any time where you have a lot of things to do, but it makes sense to kind of parcel it up into specific tasks.
Right. And you just set it up with a title and then an indent, and a title and an indent. And you don't get the title as a task because I have it complete with last action.
Yeah.
But I get these 4, and that's all I get on the screen until they're done. Then I get these 6, and that's all I get on the screen until they're done. And it's helpful to keep me focused in the moment, which on Sunday morning before I preach, a good, calm focus, very important.
And as you mentioned earlier, having that margin in there too. So if something takes longer than expected, you're not scrambling. You're not assuming everything's going to go perfectly. You've got that padding built in there. If it's not totally clear from a technical point of view, so Michael's created a sequential project called Sunday Morning. And then within this project are action groups that are parallel. It's a way of revealing a group of actions in pieces. So even though the entire project is sequential, you can still have parallel action groups within it. Robert's asking, do you recommend both the iOS and Mac version of Do? Do you use that across all your devices essentially, or is it?
Yes. Yeah, because I can be in another part of the church away from my iMac when an alarm goes off, and it'll go off on my watch. It'll go off on my phone, my iPad, whatever's with me, as well as back at the iMac when it's not with me. So yeah, you got to have it everywhere if you're going to hear your alarms.
Yeah, and I find it can be very useful to add Do items on a Mac, just using a keyboard shortcuts, and then they sync across all your devices as well.
Correct.
So if you think of something, I really need to make sure that I do something at 5 p.m. or something, you can, whatever device is in front of you is a great one to set it up on, and then it'll sync across all your different devices.
Right. You can start setting it up on your watch. You can actually ask the S lady to create an item in Do, and then it'll create the item and then tell you to continue on your phone.
Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing all of your wisdom and getting down to the details of your system. One thing I really want to underline that you shared, I think is very valuable, is that notion of a gatekeeper. And I think one of the reasons OmniFocus works so well for you is you have a criteria for what is allowed into the system. And that can make all the difference in the world, so that you're looking at very useful, relevant lists. And that gatekeeper is key.
So I got those 3 books in physical, I got them on Kindle, and I got them on Audible. So I can listen to them while I drive, and I can read them on my phone.
And these are the sorts of books it's good to go back and reread. Some people will read it every year or two just to kind of as a bit of a litmus test to say, am I actually practicing what I love so much about these books, and to maybe get them at a whole new level as well too. So yeah, that's where having the audio version can be very useful too, just to have that little refresher whenever you need.
The guy who reads margin is a very calm, soothing voice.
Oh, nice.
So it helps.
That always helps, yeah. Okay, well, thank you again, Michael. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. Lots of great questions and conversations were going on in the chat box. I really appreciate those as well. And I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon, maybe one of the office hour sessions. Okay, take care. Bye for now.